Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Tyron Hyde.
I've seen so many wonderful speeches on this stage. I hope I can do it justice. But as Dale said, I have been a member for 12 years now, which is wonderful. Wait a minute, 12 years? 12 years at $7,000 a pop, flights, international accommodation. It's cost me $100,000 to get onto this stage. Dale Beaumont, you're a genius. You should consider a career in coaching. I practiced that 100 times. And every time I laughed, because I do laugh at my own jokes, I'm warning you now. Okay, so I'm going to break this into 3 parts. First part, a little bit about myself. Then I'm going to talk about how I ran my company for 2 years from a jungle school in Bali called the Green School. And then I'm going to talk about old mate here, Harry Triguboff, the $26 billion man. He's been a client of mine now for 27 years, and he's a pretty interesting guy. So firstly, a little bit about me. I own a company called Washington Brown. We've been around for 45 years. We're a quantity surveying company, which means we work out what things cost to build. But I save property investors money. That's my focus. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Ty, you look 25. How on earth can you own a company that's been around for 45 years? There's a story. So I'll start to the story. So when I was about this age, here I'm 17, taking my girlfriend to the high school formal. That escalated, and here we are today. There's my daughter Taylor and the little puppy. We all know, whoever's got a dog, we know which one's the favourite, right? So when I was that young man, 17, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Someone suggested to me, why don't you do this thing called quantity surveying, construction economics at uni? I looked into it. It was a combination of construction, property, which I love, and mathematics. I was really good at maths. So I went down that path, and I did 2 years of uni at UTS, and then I deferred for 3 years. And I did what every good young Aussie should do. I backpacked around the world. The number one thing I learned from backpacking was I never wanted to work for minimum wage again. So I came back, and I finished my degree. Then I was 24 in the final year, and I felt I was too old to get into the industry. And I went to uni one day, and on the columns were all these job ads. Cadet wanted, Washington Brown. Well, it sounds like a fancy company, Washington Brown. So I stole all the job ads, and I was the only one that turned up. I got the job. I was employee number 1. In my final year at uni, I wrote a thesis on property depreciation and how it affects property investors. In 1997, the laws changed, and the ATO said, if you don't know the construction costs as a property investor, you can get an estimate from a quantity surveyor and we'll accept it. Woo! That was me. I was the only one that I just wrote a thesis on this. So I left Washington Brown and started my own company called Property Depreciation Pty Limited. Wasn't that original, admittedly. I've still got it as a trading company. But then it worked really well. Started going really well. My ex-boss said, why don't you come back, we merge and you can work with me. And my company started going like that. And then I bought him out. That's how I ended up with this dinosaur company. So I came to a business blueprint conference, and this guy got on the stage. I'm sure some of you remember him. His name was Michael McQueen. He was a futurist. He was a fantastic speaker. And he said there's 4 things that can disrupt the business. Number 1, technological change. Think Netflix swallowing Blockbuster, or Kodak, how they didn't see the digital camera coming. The second thing that could change, the market shifts. So think Bunnings, right? Where was the last time you saw a local hardware store? No, we need to go to a big box with 50 aisles to choose a hammer now, don't we? The market shifted. The demographics could change. Think WeWork. COVID wasn't very good for WeWork when we started working out, that's better, when we started learning that we could all work from home and not travel 3 hours to work. But the one that would affect me was this one. The legislation could change. In 2017, the government said, if you buy a second-hand property, you can no longer claim the depreciation of an oven, a lift, etc. It has to be brand new. That's about 80% of my turnover, right? I was like, what am I going to do? So I did the only natural thing you could do. I told my staff, I'm going to run the business from a jungle school in Bali, as you do. So they were a little bit hesitant, but why would I do that? Well, this is one of the reasons. Let's build the business of your dreams. For me, being able to run the business from a jungle school in Bali was part of my dreams, right? Of course, the other part was this fantastic school. It's something special. It's all bamboo. There's no air conditioning. There's drop toilets. There's no exams. The kids love that. There's no homework. They foster a love of learning, not rote learning. This is the communal area. This is the playground. It's like walking onto the set of Gilligan's Island. This is the football field. It's a bamboo oasis. The kids get dirty. Instead of learning angles from a book, They make mud pyramids and learn the angles that way. Each day, they come to school on a biobus, which is run on used cooking oil, which the kids go and collect from the local wurrungs. It was a Year 12 project to convert the buses from normal buses to used cooking oil. Each day at the end of school, 300 Indonesian kids come in and learn English for free, provided they bring in 2 kilos of plastic. There's cows walking around the school. Rabbits. It's pretty special. So whilst my daughter's making raincoats out of recycled plastic, I'm making bamboo guitars. My wife's learning how to farm rice with the locals. My wife actually wrote a book about this called Our Green Change, which is a really special book. But I'm not here to tell you about my travel diary, right? I could talk Bahasa all day about Bali. What I'm here to tell you is, from a business point of view, how did I do that? Because I haven't got this is just before COVID, and the work from home thing wasn't a really thing yet. And I haven't got a bunch of digital nomads working for me. These are real people going to inspect properties, right? They're not all just coders. They can work anywhere. So what it did, you've got to understand the structure of Washington Brown. There's me and there's 5 main people. There's the head of marketing, head of sales, general manager, accounts, and one other, head of quantity surveying. And I said to him, look, I don't know what's going to happen with the business anymore. It's turbulent times. There's a big headwind coming. I said, I've got good news and I've got bad news. What do you want first? What do you reckon everyone wanted? No, they wanted the good news. Be positive, people. The good news. I said, the good news is I'm putting you all on a profit share. That's good news. What's the bad news? I said, I'm putting you all on minimum wage. To this day, and I said, I'm putting myself on minimum wage. I'm still on minimum wage. I make a bit of profit, but I'm still on minimum wage. And they all are. We all survived. You know what happened when I did it? It empowered them, right? They started worrying about the bottom line. Next thing you know, we didn't need a massive Christmas party. Next thing you know, I give them the P&L every month. I said, make it better. If they make it better for them, it makes it better for me. We used to have an end of financial year party every year. The moment I did this, we suddenly didn't need it. From a practical point of view, there's so many co-working spaces in Bali now. The time zone's good. You've got multiple generators and IT systems, so it's very doable, Bali. And obviously the cost of living is good. So, and even at the Green School, they have a co-working space where people come in every day and get fantastic lectures. It's very motivational. So it's doable. But I said to my wife before I went, I said, if there's one person that rings and says, you've got to come back for a meeting, I have to. So here I am, literally working at a jungle school in Bali, and I get a call from Harry Triguboff's EA, says, Harry wants to have lunch with you. So I have to fly back from the greenest school in the planet with all those carbon footprints to have lunch. Now, if you don't know who Harry Triguboff is, he's been constantly ranked the richest man or person in Australia. I think Gina Reinhardt is now, but, she's getting sued by her kids, so that must be a frosty Christmas at lunch, that must be. Harry's worth $26 billion. To put that in perspective, if you merge Suncorp Bank, which includes GIO, AMI, Vero, Bingle, all those other ones, with AMP, you still haven't reached his personal net wealth. Last 4 years, Oxfam estimated that he made $1.5 million per hour. So when he invites me for a 2-hour lunch, I'm shit scared he's going to send me an invoice for his time. True story. Now, I first met Harry 27 years ago. He invited me in, and he's the best storyteller I've ever met in my life. It was a 30-minute meeting. For the first 29 minutes, he just told me stories about his life. And in the last minute, he just said, can you help me? But for the first 29 minutes, he told me how his parents escaped communist Russia because he's of anti-Semitism. He's Jewish. And then he told me how he grew up in China, or when they sent him to Australia for a better life, his first job was as a milkman, right? Or how he got into the property industry. He was building his house and he had a dispute with his builder and he took over the job. Or in the 70s where he nearly went broke and the city borrowed money from Citibank and Citibank said, we want the money back. He said, what do you want, a lot of uncompleted buildings? No bank wants uncompleted buildings. So he finished those jobs, paid them back, and he vowed he'd never borrow another cent again. And he hasn't. Everything you see with a Meriton with 50 cranes, all cash. So what are the 7 lessons I've learned from Harry? It was hard to break it down just to 7, I've got to be honest with you, but this is what I've come up with. Number 1, he is the ultimate 1% man. I know Dave mentioned this book the other day, Atomic Habits. I read it. I'm like, this is Harry. Now, it talks about 2 things, Atomic Habits. It talks about creating habits and how to keep them, and also talks about the 1%ers that you can change in your life and have a compounding effect. But the first thing it does is to create habits. For instance, deleting Facebook and Instagram off your phone and just using it on a desktop will give you 2 hours back a day. It works. I did it. You know what happens? Facebook serves up the good stuff on your desktop because they want you to come back. They're like a social media drug dealer. The other habit was, instead of you go training in the morning, leave your gear at the front door the night before. You're far better, more chance of going training if it's there already rather than getting up at 6 o'clock and trying not to wake your partner up. It works. The other thing it talks about, is the one percenters. This guy, Dave Brailsford, before he got involved with the British cycling team, they hadn't won a medal parade, they hadn't won a Tour de France for over 100 years. He came along, he changed the one percenters in the team. Things like getting surgeons in to teach them how to wash their hands properly so they wouldn't get sick. Getting someone in to work out the best pillows for their necks so they wouldn't get sore necks when they're riding. Next thing you know, they're winning medals. I'm reading this guy, this is Harry, and I'll tell you a story. So he invites me to lunch about 15 years ago. This is World Tower, tallest residential tower in the Southern Hemisphere. He kept the top third, as you do, but he kept the top floor for himself, for entertaining, right? I walk in there, top floor, 75th floor, the butler opens the door. I walk in there, I go, something different about this apartment. Apart from the fact that it's got 12-foot floor-to-ceiling height, all glass and looks overseas. It's like owning a floor of Centrepoint Tower. I walk in there and go, something different. There's no bedrooms, right? It's purely a kitchen and bathrooms and just entertaining. Hi, Dave. It's pretty amazing. I sit down next to him. This is at the lunch. I said, Harry, I've written a book called Claim It. Catchy title. I said, it's about property depreciation and investment. Very good. That's how he talks. Very good. I said, it's about depreciation. Very good. I said, but Harry, there's a chapter in there about you called High Rise Harry. I didn't get a very good. So I said, you can see from the photo, it's A4 with a staple. It hasn't actually gone to press yet. And with Harry, there's always 6 handle honours at the table. So I give it to him to read. He reads it. You could have heard a pin drop. There was silence for 15 minutes while he read this chapter. Finished his last page. Very good. Yes. I said, Harry, can you write something for me so I can put it on the back of the book? So I give him a pen. He grabs a napkin. He writes on the napkin. And this is what he wrote. I made up my mind to work with Tyron when I saw him. I never went to another Qantas fair and I never regretted it. Right? It's pretty cool. And he hasn't. He still hasn't. Anyway, you know why he wrote on a napkin? Harry's never used a computer in his life from what I've seen. Why does he need a computer? All he needs to know, if he buys land for $150K per site, builds it for $350 and sells it for $1 million, it works. He doesn't need a Macquarie Bank bloody Excel spreadsheet. So this is where the 1% kicks in. The book gets published. I send him a copy, the first one off the press. Dear Harry, thank you for your loyalty, etc. The next week, he's obviously read it. His EA's ringing me up and says, Tyron, Harry wants 6 more copies. Why? He wants his executive team to know exactly what you do. Okay. And now the 1%. For the next year, he summons me into his office, sits me down, teach me something new for 5 minutes. I have to teach him something new about depreciation for 5 minutes for a whole year. By week 38, I'm running out of tips and tricks, let me tell you. But if he's doing this for me, for one little niche of his business, if he's doing this for every other trade, every engineer, every finance manager, how's his 1%ers compounding going? All right? His thirst for knowledge is like nothing I've ever seen. He knows more about depreciation than my competitors. He loves it. It helps having $26 billion in depreciable assets to worry about it. But it's Harry. The second thing I've learned from Harry is KISS. It's not the band. Keep it simple, stupid. Now with Harry, I don't know about you. I don't reckon I'm the only guilty one here where I've got a business. I thought I could do this. I could go into this business. I could have this side business, this side hustle. When I was doing this talk, I wrote down all the things that I've gone into and I got a headache. Sinking funds, due diligence reports, asbestos reports. I even created a competitor to myself at one stage, and then I tried to take on realestate.com because I had all these investors and all these developers. I'd merge them together and compete. Didn't work. Not Harry. He is stuck in his lane. All he's ever done is build apartments. He could have easily, with his teams, gone and built commercial towers or industrial boxes. And trust me, it's far easier to build a commercial tower with one tenant than it is to deal with 4,000 units in one development and have all those pesky lawyers and all those pesky defects lists. Far easier. Far easier to build an industrial box than to have to deal with the regulation around putting people in houses, particularly in New South Wales now, because of Mascot Towers, right? That's one thing he's done, but he's also kept it simple in his design. They're square. You don't see many curved balconies in Meriton buildings. You don't see many curved slabs or curved balconies. It's cheaper to do that. He passes that cost on to his clients, to the purchasers. You see, you probably get about 20% more for $1 million than you would on the competing development down the road because he keeps his costs down. You can't live in a facade. You can only live in an internal area. And we all know size matters. Sorry. Number 3, systems. When you're 91, you're building 5,000 units a year, you need good systems, right? He still goes to site every morning, comes to the office at 11, but he has good systems. I saw these systems up front recently. There's a thing during COVID where the government incentivised business owners like us to spend money. If you're a farmer, go and buy a tractor, you can write it off immediately rather than depreciating it. Now, for someone like Harry, who's building hotels and blocks of apartments, and he keeps them, he can depreciate those things. We could say, okay, I'll give you an example. If he's building a hotel and he's spending $3 million on the lifts in the hotel, normally you have to wait till you finish the hotel and then you depreciate that lift over a 30-year period, $100,000. But if at the 30th of June last year, that lift was half completed, he could claim $1.5 million immediately, then the balance slowly. Now, that's a big deal for someone that's got this much under construction. So he gave me this task of going out to all these properties and working out the percentage completion of every item. Big job when you consider this job, this project. First one I went to, it's in Pagewood. It's got 44 blocks in it, right? Not apartments, 44 blocks, 4,000 apartments. And when you build a development like this, you don't just build them all at once. You stage it. You move the teams around. You don't want to have all the units ready for sale. So it's all staged. Some blocks are 10%, some are 5%, some are 10%. Well, where do I start? I've got my little notepad. Okay, so I get the foreman out. I say, hey, let's go through these numbers. What's in block C? How many ovens have you got completed? 52 out of 105. What about block D? 102 out of 158. And it just kept happening every site. I'd go to the foreman, knew exactly every item where it's completion. I'm like, what is going on? It all gets fed into Harry. Every week, every foreman has to send exactly percentage of every item where it's complete. And then it gets fed into his sheets. They're called the hot sheets, the Harry Oscar Triguboff sheets, because he doesn't do it. But he walks around with these sheets that gives him the exact percentage of every item in the project. That's his system. And that's because he knows the number one determination, if there's a problem on a job, it's the speed of construction, right? So he knows if in week 1 there's 58 ovens done on that block, the next week should be 72. If not, there's a problem. Because with him, it's not cash flow, right? So there's something else. That's how he keeps the finger on his pulse. He's worse with sales. For me, I do the same thing. But for me, it's for inbound inquiries, right? I have the same system. I know exactly how many people come in, etc. So I ask you, what are your systems to make sure that you've got the finger on the pulse? Number 4, loyalty. There's a saying, if you last a week with Harry, you last 20 years. I've been 27. He's got trades that have now, he started with their grandfather, and now he's got the grandkids working for him. You can't build that many people, that many apartments unless you've got loyalty teams. I know every competitor's approached him to do what I do, right? You know what he does? He sends it to me. He goes, what do you think? Do you think that brings loyalty? Do you think when someone does that, I'm like, Harry says jump, I say how high? Of course, loyalty. But I've done that with my staff as well. The average length of time at Washington Brown employee is 14.2 years. I can't get rid of them. They go, babies, come back, tying me a job. But it's enabled me to go to Bali because I trust them. Number 5, follow the leader. I've made a lot of money out of Harry, but I probably would have made more buying when he goes into a different area, buying a townhouse around the corner. They have a knack. People like him, Tim Gurner, Len Walker, have a knack of knowing where to go. You could do the same. You could follow Bunnings. Bunnings have teams of demographers working out where the growth corridors are, but you can find out where the next Bunnings is by Cordell's. Go and buy a townhouse around the corner. Number 6, cash is king. This is interesting. Now, I'm not going to tell you the site, but I get the P&L every job Harry does. But sometimes I just shake my head and go, how did you do that? So this particular one, I was at the GFC. He bought a site, like that, for $20 million. The next day, he sold a corner off for guess how much? $20 million. Ended up getting approval for 2,500 units on that site, right? That's equivalent in today's dollars to be about $500 million, overnight risk-free. Would have made another $1 billion when he finished it. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to you. It's not going, not everyone's $20 million, I get that. But what it shows is patience, right? He sits and waits. You don't always have to be fully invested or you just sit and wait. Because what he does, he waits for hurt. They know at some point, some trust fund is going to be overgeared and they want to get paid, the liquidators will go, they go to Harry, because Harry doesn't have to go to a subcommittee. He writes them a check on the spot. It doesn't bounce. Patience in investing. Which leads me to my final number 7, which is my favourite. Harry said to me once, he goes, Tyrone! He talks like that. He ends his sentences with a higher intonation. Tyrone, do you want to know the secret to my success? I'm not going to say no. Listen to me. When times are bad, I buy land. By the time I get development approval, times are good again. I'll say it again. When times are bad, I buy land. By the time I get development approval, 2 to 3 years later, 4 sometimes, times are good again. But what does that mean for investing? It means cutting out the noise. Back yourself. Yin when others are yin. Yang. Good times will follow bad times will follow good times. So you see, for Harry, who buys the land, builds the property, then keeps half his stock, it's not a question of whether it's timing the market or having time in the market. He times the market, then has time in the market. And if you can do that, my friends, you found the Holy Grail. Thank you very much.